Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is a game that I'm very much excited for, and it's coming from a studio who I would like to see gain more popularity within the gaming community. I understand that the Xenoblade name may never be a flagship brand for Nintendo, but I still think there's plenty of room for the franchise to grow. Monolith Soft's previous two titles were stifled by some pretty bad timing. One came out for a console with terrible attachment rates for anything that wasn't a massive Nintendo IP or shovelware, and the other came out for a console that couldn't sell a significant amount of units. But in this case, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is coming to the Switch, which is performing extremely well. By the time holiday rolls around, Xenoblade isn't going to have much else to compete with either. So this game is definitely on track to being Monolith Soft's best-selling game to date. All it needs to do now is market itself properly. Just enough so that the game's launch can garner enough attention to get the ball rolling. A few good trailers here and there should do the trick, but you know what's not gonna do the trick? Bad trailers. And the E3 trailer for this game was pretty bad. I think a clear indicator is that the 40-minute Treehouse presentation has nearly the same amount of views, and that just shouldn't happen. These 3-minute trailers are supposed to be your bread and butter. They're supposed to be the thing that people replay over and over again because they're that enjoyable to watch. For me personally, I didn't even replay this trailer once until a week later, and that means something coming from a guy who's probably seen the Mario Odyssey trailer over 30 times now. Here's the thing, the reveal trailer back in January wasn't that great either, but it had this killer 40 seconds at the end where it slowly pans out with this beautiful tune playing in the background, and that's part of the reason why it has 2 million views. This trailer, on the other hand, it doesn't have anything like that. There are a few good shots here and there, but they're vastly overshadowed by the mediocre parts. As a result, it fails to leave any meaningful impact. Now, I've never directed a trailer in my life, but I'd like to think that I can at least identify some of the shortcomings in this one and maybe point out what they could have done a little differently. So that's what I'm gonna do.
Story goes that when the world was young, everyone in Alres lived on the World Tree.
All things considered, it actually starts off pretty strong. I think the camera is a little too janky for something trying to depict flying through a sea of clouds, but other than that, the music is really nice and the beginning monologue does a perfect job at setting up the main premise. Couple that with a nice slow shot of the World Tree and you get a pretty good first 30 seconds.
Together with our Divine Father, the Architect. They called that paradise Elysium.
But after this, they start to run into some issues. I think it was a very poor decision to use the next few shots, particularly the final one. It's no secret that the game they showed off at E3 is an unfinished build, and it's pretty evident that they have a lot more polishing to do before it's released. They even take the time to mention this during the Treehouse livestream.
I do want to point out, by the way, that where we are in development right now, there's still a lot of polish that's going on, so, but in the months that we have left in development, we're going to see a lot of polish going on. So bear that in mind as we're playing.
You can see the clouds and shadows being all jittery in this shot, but the worst is when they show the entire town. It was probably intended to get the viewer thinking, whoa, look at how big and grand this place is. Instead, the only thing I was thinking was, wow, this looks bad. It's clear that the current state of the game is in no condition to make this look impressive. The shadows from the windmill are extremely choppy and just about everything else looks jagged and unfinished. I get the idea that they're trying to show off the scale of the game, as that's always been Xenoblade's strong point, but I feel like they could have found a better way to do this. Following this, we get a little more voice acting, specifically from the main protagonists Rex and Pyra.
You're a Blade.
As the driver of the Aegis, can you take me to Elysium?
I'm in. Let's go to Elysium. I'll take you there myself.
The first impression for many so far has been that the voice acting is not very strong, at least based on what we've heard in this trailer. This is what I thought as well, but it wasn't until I ran through the trailer a few times that I started thinking that maybe this isn't as bad as it seems. I think it's very difficult to judge the voice work of a game based on a few clips because we're missing a few things like context and the flow of a natural conversation. Obviously, the lines that are exchanged between Rex and Pyra don't take up the whole conversation that takes place in the actual game. It's just a few lines edited together that give us a general idea of what they're talking about. Now, most of the time this is gonna sound a little wonky because it's unnatural, so I would assume that it would be in the editor's best interest to keep these back and forth conversations as short as possible, while still being able to convey the necessary information to the viewer. I feel like this could have been shortened a bit. The first line is fine.
You're a blade.
The question implies that the girl he's talking to, Pyra, is a blade. Although we don't know exactly what that entails, we get a visual representation later on.
As the driver of the Aegis.
This line means nothing to me as a viewer. We don't even know what a driver is, and we don't know what the Aegis is. If you've been following the game closely, then yeah, you would have figured out at some point that Rex, being the one to wield the blade, is the driver, and Pyra, being the blade, is the Aegis. But this one sentence doesn't make that clear to someone who's watching it for the first time. As the driver of the Aegis. What's a driver? Is Rex the driver? Is the Aegis a car? Does Rex have a sweet ass car that he's gonna use to drive you to Elysium? I don't know. You can't just throw two new terms at the viewer and expect them to know what's going on.
I'm in. Let's go to Elysium. I'll take you there myself.
There's no reason for Rex to mention Elysium here again. She just said it. It's already established where Elysium is thanks to the beginning monologue, and she already said it as the destination by asking you to take her there. When someone asks you, would you like a glass of water? You say, yes, please. Sure, that would be swell. You don't say, yes, I would like a glass of water. It's redundant. You already know what you're talking about. There's no need to repeat nouns for no reason. You're trying to make this dialogue seem as natural as possible, and this isn't helping. In conclusion, I think this is all that was needed.
You're a blade.
Can you take me to Elysium?
I'm in. I'll take you there myself.
It conveys the exact same information, and it cuts down on the awkward back and forth talking. After Rex agrees to go to Elysium with her, he touches her green jewel thing, and then... This is a pretty slick shot. Also, this sword is pretty damn cool. Oh boy, here we go. The music is blaring, and now... Wait, what? Why would you... Who did this? You build up all this energy with the previous shot, then you have a song that comes in with this badass intro, and you waste it on potentially the least badass looking footage of the game you could find? Janky low frame rate battle animations? With Rex and Pyra saying what's most likely just regular battle quotes? Why would you do this? You just wasted all the anticipation you built beforehand going into this, and somehow you made this badass song intro into something cheesy because now all I can picture is Rex pumping his fists like, yeah boy. There are so many other things you could have shown with that music instead of what you just showed. As much as I like the previous shot for having the sound effects take the front stage, even this would have worked a lot better. Look, here we go. Look at this.
I'll take you there myself.
There, done. But really, you could have used any footage from the entire game and you chose this? Why? I'm trying to move on from this, but I just don't get it. Why would you do that? Who let this happen? Who honestly let this happen? Who's watching this and was like, yep, this is good. This is really hype. This is gonna help the trailer. Yeah, this is great. The next shot is pretty cool, but you don't really process it the first time around because all that momentum was already destroyed a few seconds ago. Side note, I really like the effect they have going on here with the blue and orange sparks. Also, did I mention the sword is pretty damn cool? These swords are also pretty damn cool. These shots serve the purpose of showing the viewer that Pyra is directly connected to the blade, so you can see that when the sword takes a blow, she also gets hurt. Although I feel like communicating that with a boob jiggle effect kinda comes off as cheesy considering there's a pretty serious tone to the music in the background. Next, we get a bit more voice acting.
We'll show you what me and Pyra are made of. Take this!
Now, I think these are the parts that stick out the most when it comes to the questionable voice work. The way I see it, there's two possibilities. The first is that these lines just sound bad because they're taken from other scenarios in the game. Even ignoring the lip sync, it doesn't seem like the emotion Rex is giving off here matches this particular scene. And the infamous
Take this!
sounds like it's either battle dialogue for a special attack, or is taken from a totally different scene altogether. So it could just be that our brains are trying to attach dialogue to visuals that don't match, thus making it sound a lot more out of place. The second possibility is that the delivery of these lines are just terrible, but I have my doubts. Rex sounded totally fine in the first half of the trailer, including that beginning monologue. Obviously, we have a very small sample size of lines, so we're just gonna have to wait until we hear more from the game. I don't have too many issues with the next 30 seconds other than the fact that the shit is just jumping around way too fast. It makes it really hard to process the fight scene when we're also trying to listen to what this guy is trying to say. It's not until you run through the trailer a couple times that you notice how hyped the animations in this fight look. Additionally, this sword is pretty damn cool. A little after this, we get to the part where the music starts to really pick up, but the whole thing just kind of feels underwhelming. They show some shots of Rex running through some fields, but none of it is particularly interesting or impressive. At least nothing to merit the most intense part of the song playing in the background. None of the next 3 shots look like they're even trying to show off the game's scale like they did earlier in the trailer, further supporting the idea that from a visual standpoint, this game just isn't ready. When it came time for them to show off the environments in Xenoblade Chronicles X, they weren't shy about it at all. Most of the shots were taken from high areas in the game pointing downwards so that the viewer could look out and see all the details off in the distance. But here, every shot is set up with the camera either below or even with Rex, making sure not to reveal too much of the surroundings. The shot on the bridge seems very uncharacteristic of Monolith Soft, with nothing more than the sky in the background. They do eventually show a zoom out shot, but it's of the same area that we saw at the beginning, and it still looks pretty bland. Considering this is one of the first areas of the game, and considering this is the area they showed off during the Treehouse livestream, I'd assume that this is the most finished area in the game. And if that's the case, they have a lot of work to do if this is to come out during holiday. After the gameplay shots, they show off some more cutscenes that I don't have much of an issue with. Also, this sword is cool as shit. All the swords in this game are cool. Honestly, who's designing these swords, man? Xenoblade 2's Blade game is on point. The next few seconds are filled with some pretty cool shots, but you barely see any of them because everything is just moving so damn fast. I get that we're getting into the climax of the trailer, but at least give the viewer a second to process what he or she is even seeing. The first shot is of this guy slicing a damn fireball out of the air, and it's really awesome, but it happens really quickly. You can't even see the thing he's slicing out of the air if you don't go frame by frame. Hell, you can't even tell he's slicing something out of the air unless you watch the trailer a few times. It's such a waste of a cool scene. The next shot is of Pyra blocking an attack from whatever weapon this guy's swinging, I don't know. Again, another fraction of a second shot. The next one is of this eye patch fellow getting ready with his cool ass sword. Look at how cool this sword is. Once again though, you only get a few frames to see it, and I had to go frame by frame to gain any appreciation for it. In the next few shots, we get a voice clip from one of the females in the game.
I won't use that power, and I won't let you use it either!
There are voice clips that run throughout the rest of this trailer, most of which I don't have a problem with. I thought I'd single out this one in particular because it definitely sounds like one of the cheesier ones. I think a big reason why it sounds like this is that the visuals don't really fit together with the tone of her voice and what she's saying. Like, I won't use that power, cue the goofiest looking duo in the game. And I won't let you use it either, cue a shot of an open field that doesn't express any of the energy she's bringing to the table right now. As for the last 10 seconds of the trailer, I had absolutely no issues with it. Some cool imagery, a foreboding quote from what's most likely one of the main antagonists, and lots of energetic scenes as the song kicks up for its ending.
If you know what you desire, you will have to show it. Not with words, but with your own strength.
Everyone, let's go!
The finale was nice, and there were a few strong parts spread throughout, but overall it was the bad parts that broke up the flow and made the whole thing unenjoyable to watch. Like I mentioned before, these short trailers are supposed to be the things that fans watch over and over again, and for that to happen, the whole thing needs to work together. As much as I like analyzing trailers, this one was just not fun for me to run through from beginning to end. I like replaying specific parts of it that I think are done well, but every time I try to start it from the beginning, I'm left cringing from some poorly edited parts by the time I reach the end. I think that whoever is handling the trailers for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 needs to take a step back and try to recognize some of the parts that are bringing down this trailer, and hopefully apply that knowledge to the next one.